Welcome back to an old school episode of the Hoops Temple podcast. We've got Dylan Williamson in New Zealand,
Good morning, Nathan.
and y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz in Michigan. Aaron has decided to go camping in 110-degree weather because that sounds horrible, but I hope he has a fun time.
Yeah. Do you always introduce yourself as Nathan on the podcast, or did I throw you off?
I don't know 100%. Do I?
I don't know.
Y'all know me? Yeah, I think I do say. I feel like I say, y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz, or maybe I do say Nate Schwartz. I don't know. I go by both completely interchangeably. So, like, it was actually kind of a problem. Not my current employer, but my last employer. In half the systems, I was Nate Schwartz, and the other half, I was Nathan Schwartz.
Yeah,
And
they thought it was like two different people. They're like,
Yeah.
this Nate Schwartz guy, we need to give him a promotion, but this Nathan Schwartz guy, let's get rid of him.
It was really fun because I'd call like help desk, and I'd be like, hey, I'm having this tech issue, and they're like, cool, can you verify your username? And I provide that. They're like, can you verify your actual name? Like, my name is Nathan Schwartz. Like, ooh, sorry, that's not what we have here. Can we get you to verify something else? I'm like, guys, do you have Nate? Like, oh yeah, that's what we got. I'm like, it's the same name. It's the same name.
They're not employed for that kind of problem solving, Nate.
No. But we're here to solve the problems of the NBA season. More specifically, who are the 100 best players in the league? Now, we're not going to sit here and make you guys listen to all 100. That will take like 4 hours. But we
unless you wanted to, like, you could just put off this episode, put off part 2, and then wait till part 3 comes out, and then run them back to back to back, and then your whole day is taken care of.
Or hear me out. You listen to this immediately as soon as it comes out. You put it on repeat. You maybe hear it a second time, and then just like maybe rewatching a show full season before the new season comes out, you will listen to it again when we drop 34 through 68 or whatever, because we're going to try to get through 103, so it's going to be like 33, 33, and 34. And then you just do that each time. So that way you end up listening to this like 5 times, but then you're knowledgeable. You know exactly who the top 100 are, according to us.
I mean, just for context, like, you don't want to be listening to the 60s and be like, hey, where's this player? And then we already did him in part 1, so you should definitely re-listen.
Yeah.
Did you find, as you were preparing for this and doing your preliminary outline of the top whatever players, did you find this was like actually hard to come up with a top 10? Like, I feel like this is the first time since I've been an NBA fan where there hasn't been like a pretty clear top 10.
I felt like this year there was like a clear top 2, and I feel like in past years we've done this. So we've been doing this since I don't know. I know we've at least done it the past 2 years, and we did it back in like 2018 once for fun. But I feel like in past years there's been like, hey, there's these 5 guys that are kind of, they're the top 5, and you kind of sort them any way you want. This year I feel like there's the top 2. There's Jokic and Luka. And then I feel like there's a mess for guys like 3 through 8. And I feel like there's a mess for guys like 9 through 15-ish. And I wasn't entirely sure how to deal with a lot of that. I feel like there's a lot that we can kind of flip around on here. So I think there's going to be great cases, and it's going to really depend on what people value. If you value guys who are there every day, the availability, well, then that's going to knock someone like Davis or LeBron down. If you value just absolute apex, what they can be, then a guy like Kawhi, who played 52 games last season, probably is still going to be pretty high in your book, because if healthy, he could be there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like, it goes back to your philosophy of balancing playoffs and regular season, and whether it's sort of a cumulative value outweighs a per game sort of value. But I think the funniest part is that you said there's a clear top 2, and then it's immediately just not the top 2 that I thought you were going to say.
Oh no. Who did you think the top 2 were? Maybe there's not a clear top 2. To to me, they're the two best players in the world, and it's Jokic and it's Giannis, who I think are both in their primes. And I think just consistently, those are going to be the guys that we're going to see night in, night out, be the best. But apparently, I'm
no.
not.
No, we got it there. The first time you said Jokic and Luka, and I was like, oh.
Oh, did I say
didn't
Jokic
have-
and Luka?
Yeah, he said Jokic and Luka the first
Oh
time. I
my
was like,
God.
oh, that's not who I had. You're like, there's a pretty clear top two. Everyone agrees it's Jokic and Luka. I was like, what? Dude, they didn't
Okay.
even make the playoffs?
I'm gonna let you know. I always have some sort of excuse. Normally, it's the fact that this room is 1,000 degrees when I'm recording in. Yesterday was that I was at Cedar Point riding roller coasters, just like all day out in the hot sun, 30,000 steps on the day, and like I got home at between 1 and 2 a.m. Went to bed at like 2 a.m. I'm like, I'm still in a bit of a recovery stage, so we're gonna bear through any stupid things. If I say something like that again, just be like, "Do you mean this guy?" And I'll be like, "Yes."
I'm going to be doing that all podcast. It's be like, no, Nate, you meant this guy.
Be like, my nomination for number 26 is Pascal Siakam. I'm like, did you mean to say
I
Jamal
think you mean
Murray?
Jaren Jackson here.
All right. So we're in lockstep. There is Jokic and there is Giannis. How are you parsing 1 and 2?
Between those two?
Yeah, unless you've got someone else in in
No,
either of
no.
those spots.
No, I think it's like a Jokic tier 1 by himself. Like, I think that there is a gap between 1 and 2. It's not like these guys are super close. Obviously, Giannis brings like much more defensive ability, but we just saw Jokic dominate the entire league all regular season and then go through and do it in the playoffs and like redefine the way in which you can win games. A guy who's possibly the worst rim protecting center of all starting centers in the entire NBA, and is so good at offense that it cancels out his bad defense because you can play better defensive players without losing offense. And then a guy who's just so dominant on that offensive end of the floor, you can't single cover him. You also can't double team him. He's just impossible to play against. Sorted out his conditioning, didn't get gassed out as they went through the playoffs, and found ways where still a really bad rim protector, but did actually find ways to make a defensive impact as well. And so I think that level that he is above Giannis offensively is sufficient that he's a clear number one above Giannis, despite Giannis's superior, I guess, two-way ability.
Yeah, I would. Unfortunately, we're repping the Buck shirt today. I unfortunately have to agree with that. I mean, I've fallen in love with Giannis's game since I watched grainy footage of him in Greece. Like, my cat's name is Giannis. I am 100% in the Giannis stand bag. But Giannis also has kind of been challenged, and the Raptors showed a few years back how you build that wall. And before he got hurt in the Miami game, which was early in the game, Miami was doing a good job building that wall. And when he came back from that injury, yes, he's laboring, yes, he's hurt, and yes, he does put up good numbers. But they also still show that there is a defense against Giannis that I need to see him overcome it. He overcame it once, gets through in that 2021 year, and it's a great year. It's a wonderful year, but I haven't seen his game continue to grow and progress. And I do feel like I've seen Jokic's game the last couple of years catch up and then surpass what Giannis's game has been. So I'm very comfortable with Jokic 1, Giannis 2. Do you have a nomination for 3? So I feel like this is where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
That's why I threw out 1 and 2, and I'm like,
yeah.
1 and 2. 3, like, are we expecting another jump from someone? Is there an older player who we expect to maintain health and consistency? Because, like, that's the other thing is, man, I wish I could look at one guy and be like, this guy played 75, 80 games, but right now, Durant 47, Curry 56, Embiid 66. Embiid's one of the healthier guys. Embiid plays some of the most games. Luka 66, Davis 56. Tatum is probably the one exception at 74, Shea 68, Booker 53, LeBron 55, Kawhi 52. Like a lot of these top tier players did not play that many games last year. Who do you think is going to play the best or be the best player this next season?
I think we just stick with Steph Curry at number 3.
Okay.
Like the offensive impact is still, unparalleled, and like the numbers really spell it out. If you look at the offensive ratings when he's on the floor, the effectiveness of like that 5-man starting group shows that when Steph Curry's on the floor, the Warriors are still like one of the best teams in the NBA, even if they aren't consistently on the season. And that shooting's still unbelievable. It opens up everything for him. The best relocator in the league. And it's become like, strong enough that he's not a defensive liability.
Can I interest you in the Kevin Durant case? Because I had Curry at 4 and I had Durant at 3, and I was kind of weighing the options between the two. And I just want to get your take on this preference, because I think at this point, no one doesn't know what these two guys bring. They both bring incredible scoring, just elite offense. Durant, I think, can be a little bit more universal in that as an isolation player, I think he's going to get you a lot more scoring than Curry's going to be able to bring you. I also think over the course of the regular season, the Warriors aren't exactly ever going to go all out. Like, I don't think that they're going to aim for a top 4 seed. I do think the Suns feel that they're going to need it. And so there's a good chance that Curry he played 35 minutes per game last season. There's a chance I feel like they dial it back, especially with Chris Paul there, to kind of save more minutes for Curry. And so my Durant case is that he might play a crap ton of minutes. He might be really needed. That was in part why I liked them getting Bol. Bol was, at least Bol is another guy that can play the power forward position, which I didn't feel like they had really any other good power forwards. So they were going to need Durant to just play insane minutes. But I still think they will play him a lot. And maybe over the course of the regular season, Durant's impact will need to be higher and will be higher because he's just playing more.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of get into another philosophical debate, which is like the best player versus has the best season, where those are not always the same thing. I feel like that's sort of the argument that you're coming at, where the reliance on Kevin Durant is going to mean that he needs to, be constantly hitting this high level that he's capable of, whereas Steph Curry maybe doesn't need to quite as much. But I do still think that like the offensive impact of Steph Curry is superior to Kevin Durant, even if Kevin Durant's maybe the best, scorer potentially in NBA history.
Yeah. Well, and the spacing for them both. If you have them on the court, doesn't matter if they ever touch the ball, whether Curry's running around or not. If you park Curry, high elbow off to the 3-point line, park Durant up there, the defense has to respect them. It has to stick with them. So they're both providing a lot, even when they're not scoring.
Yeah. And I mean, do you think Kevin Durant's going to be like the defensive leader on this team the way that he had to be in like that Brooklyn season?
Weirdly enough, I think so. Like, I don't trust DeAndre Ayton to be a good defensive player for night in, night out. I feel like if he's not getting offensive touches, which he's not going to, then a lot of times he's kind of a lazier defender and just doesn't he's not motivated to play on that end as much. So I think Durant might actually take a slight step back as a scorer offensively, just shoot less and be more of a defender, and let it Devin Booker take on a greater offensive role.
Yeah, because I mean, especially if they're going to marginalize Ayton, who has been uninspiring, or maybe they even work out a trade for him, then Kevin Durant's like weak side rim protection becomes much more important, and like that is a value. I said that part of Curry's argument for being the number 3 was that he's not a defensive liability. Well, Kevin Durant can be like a defensive impact player.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So you want to stick with Curry at 3, or you want to go Durant?
Uh
Where'd you have Durant? It's in your own board.
at 4.
Okay, so we're at
Yeah.
least in lockstep of.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go Curry 3. We'll go Durant 4. How do you feel about Embiid at 5?
Yeah, that's who I had.
I've toyed around with lowering him. I feel like we've just seen the
Yeah.
playoffs crumble so much, and I
Yeah,
think that there's a good chance they take a step back this year, just as a team with Harden on the way out. But Embiid has skills.
Yeah.
Embiid has talents.
What do you mean Harden on the way out? Didn't you hear that he's the Sixers have stopped trade talks? He's just going to come back and play.
Yeah, I heard that, and then I heard that he wasn't going to report or was going to try to sit out camp, even though they want him there, and just it's a mess. Yeah, but I mean, the man was MVP this last year for a reason. Like, yeah, we look at the playoffs and how that kind of fizzled out, and we can say, "Oh, that was a mistake." But no, it was the right call at the end of the regular season when all the votes were supposed to be in. Embiid had been the best player. Embiid has had some fantastic big scoring games. He is a two-way impact player, and that's all just kind of generic plays, is in platitudes. But the impact is there when you watch him, what he can do, and how the defense has to react to his play. Teams have to switch up their rotation. Teams have to play more bigs. Teams have to really pay attention to where he's at. So,
yeah, like I'm good with it. That's where I had him as well. But like you say, like there is an argument. Like I could see him down, all the way to like 10. I could see an argument for. So we do
sure.
get really tight, and once we're in the sort of back end of the top 10.
I can see an argument that he should be below my number 13, on this list. And I know
Yeah.
when we did it our first year, we sent it over to Ben Golliver and we had Golliver on the pod. Or no, that was the year before where we sent it to him and we got his takes and he was just like, yeah, you guys haven't beat too high. And I think we had him like at number 8 at the time. And there was all the anti-playoff criticisms back then, and he has not done anything to shake them now. So what was that? Was some squeaking going on over there?
It's probably just my chair.
Sounded like those like rubber chicken toys that like, squeak. Like
Yeah, I thought I'd do that in the background of audio recording.
All right. Well, who you got for 6?
6 gets very tricky. Like as much as I was saying, there's an argument for Embiid to be all the way down to 10, 11, 12, whatever. I feel like these next few guys are all sort of right in a tier. I went with Jason Tatum.
Okay.
Like playoff performance, offensive impact, all round play. Still young, he's still only 19, so we can get some improvement as well.
He's not only 19 anymore.
No, he's an experienced vet with proven playoff performance.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I was looking back at some past NBA trades, and I looked back at the Tracy McGrady deal when they moved him from Orlando to Houston. Him and Tatum were the same age, and it made me kind of sad because I'm like, man, McGrady's career never progressed past that point. Like that's when him and Kobe were on the same level, and like it's their athletic peak, and then Kobe added more of the head game, added more of the post game, and just continued to get better mentally and physically. And McGrady started to fall apart. I was like, man, just give me a sad thought that him and Tatum were the same age. Like we've had just a wonderful career from Tatum so far, and it feels like it's only going to get better or only going to stay at this level. But there's really no guarantee of that.
Yeah, but I mean, compared to the other players you're considering at this range, there's big reliability concerns out of pretty much all of them. And like you were saying earlier, listing out the games played of some of these like top 15 players, where they're like all like sub 60 or thereabouts. Tatum, I feel like we can rely on to be a pretty consistently available player. And you know what they say about availability.
It is the best availability. I had Tatum at 8, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to talk you into my 7. I was hoping you wouldn't have Tatum this high. You just naturally have him lower. But my number 6 was Luka Doncic. And last year we had Luka at 3, which I don't know quite what we were thinking about Luka at 3. I think we were expecting more of a leap, and it just didn't quite occur. But I do kind of think that this is going to be the Luka season of a vengeance. I know every season we see the like skinny Luka off, like the workout tapes, the whatnot. This year, I actually believe them for no basketball related reasons. Man got married this year. You want to tell me that the man gets married and gets in the best shape of his life as someone who got married and spent like 3 months on a workout regimen? I believe
is that a thing? I thought it was like the opposite. Like he's got the girl now, so now he doesn't have to work out.
No, because here's the
this
thing.
has been him in shape.
The wife wants to look amazing on her wedding day, so she starts working out. And I gotta tell you, when she's working out and she's hitting in the treadmill, she's running 5 miles, and you're sitting on the couch eating a plate of nachos, feels bad. Looks bad. She finishes, looks at you, and she's like, "You haven't moved since I ran those 5 miles." And you're like, I should probably do something, shouldn't I? So,
all right. Luka was the guy that I had next. I think, yeah. I mean, it's tricky.
it is. But with Luka, who didn't make the playoffs last year, and that's a little bit of the problem as well. But we're not just looking at last season. We are kind of projecting forward for this upcoming year.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make the playoffs this season either.
He's got to make the playoffs this year.
The West is fucking stacked, dude.
It is, but let me take a look at the West. I don't know. I actually kind of think that Memphis might drop out. I've already heard someone be critical of my take that Memphis isn't a contender this year, but I think Memphis without Ja for an extended period is going to be a lot worse shape, and I don't want to hear that they've been good without Ja. That was 2 seasons ago. Last year they were 500 or slightly below 500 without Ja, and this is with Marcus Smart being the primary decision maker now. So I think there's a chance that they drop out. The rest of the West, I mean, Minnesota made it. I think there's a chance that Dallas can beat out Minnesota for the last playoff spot. I'm never fully certain on the Lakers or Clippers' health. I wouldn't rule Dallas out just yet. I think also OKC could make it. So, like, doesn't mean Dallas will, but fairly safe. San Antonio, Houston, Portland, and Utah all won't make it. So we at least have 4 clear cut outs.
So they'll be in clear contention for a play-in spot.
Yeah.
Do you know what's a ridiculous argument for Luka? While you've got your keyboard at hand, just bring up his box score numbers.
Oh yeah.
Like when you like simulate through a 2K season, like all the superstars play way too good. Like there are like 15 players that average like 30 a game. And Luka's box score looks like what 2K simulates, like the superstars playing way too well.
32 points, 8 assists, 8.5 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, in comparison, Tatum, 30 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. So, like, 3.5 assists less, 2 points less. But, like, that still is insane numbers.
Yeah. What's Tatum's true shooting? Do you have that quickly?
The one number I don't have, I've got effective field goal percentage, which he's at 54. So it doesn't take into consideration his free throws, but his free throws are 85%. So his true shooting is going up. It's probably closer to 57, whereas Luka is 56% effective field goal.
But that's actually one way that Luka could actually improve is like the volume's super high, but the efficiency is like not like incredible. Like it is still good. It's still off the top of my head, I think it's like right at 60% true shooting. Because I don't know, like he does score very efficiently, but the 3-pointers at like 34%.
Yeah,
And the free throws are also like in the 70s. So
74.
like, yeah, like if you get that up to like 36% and 78%, which is like not unreasonable, that just adds a whole nother level of efficiency to the scoring, given the volume that he's taking of 3 pointers and free throws.
All right. All right. You talked me into it. Tatum's at 6. Luca's at 7. Anthony Davis at 8.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yes.
That's
I was throwing that out there, but I was kind of like, he's going to shoot this down. He's going to fight me on this. Davis was my number 7 because of that defensive impact. And early in the season, I don't have the exact numbers. I can pull them up now, but there was a reason why early in the year we were talking MVP candidate, and then later in the year when he came back, he was just putting up insane defensive stops, and he is the best player on the Lakers. At this point, if the Lakers win, it will not be a LeBron James Finals MVP. It will be an Anthony Davis Finals MVP because of his defensive impact, and when he gets scoring, when the mid-range jumper is falling, or when he's being aggressive, taking it to the basket, which I think we always forget. Younger Anthony Davis, the big thing about him was that he had been a guard. He had been like a recruit as a 6'1" or 6'3" guard, and then had this late growth spurt. He has handles. He can drive. So just seeing him do it, he doesn't do it consistently enough. But I do think he is absolutely a top 10 player this season.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe the best defensive player in basketball. He, like he totally forgot how to shoot last year and was still able to be like a really effective offensive player. If he can just like remember how to shoot a mid range or like, a spot up, above the arc three, that makes it even more difficult because that was the way that he was really able to dominate during the championship run as he just started hitting every single mid ranger. So if he can get like, it doesn't have to be, 50% like it was in that run, but if it can at least be a weapon, then like you can't let him shoot from mid range. You can't play up tight on him and let him go past. You can't let him get to the rim. And he's also the best defensive player in the world. Like availability is always going to be an issue. But yeah, a two-way impact guy, proven playoff player. Yeah, I think it's time.
Awesome. I thought you were going to fight me on him. I was really expecting a battle.
Yeah, I mean, like the other guys there are like, not to spoil it, but, and I hope you agree with me, that the other guys there are like, there's LeBron. I think Anthony Davis is probably better than him at this point. There's Kawhi, and then there's like Jimmy Butler.
There are 2 other names that I have in my next 5, and that is Devin Booker and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And they're actually my next 2 guys up, in part because I feel like healthiness, and just a little bit of the willingness to do it day in, day out. Like, do I think in a single game, Apex for all the marbles, who would I rather take? I'd take LeBron. I'd take Kawhi. I'd take Jimmy over Booker or Shai. But I think if we're talking an 82-game regular season plus 16-game playoffs, who do I expect to play better on a consistent level and even just play? I feel like both Booker and Shai are going to play more and higher than LeBron, Kawhi, and Butler. And I feel with Davis, at least, I trust Davis to get to a higher level and be a little bit healthier than James, Kawhi, and Butler. Maybe not Butler, but Butler. Higher level than Butler, maybe not a few more games than Butler.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up, which player do you expect to contribute the most as like from a cumulative perspective, regular season and playoffs, because Devin Booker's had some all-time like terrible playoff games and playoff series where he's been taken totally out of games in a way that I don't think Kawhi has, in a way that LeBron hasn't since like 2011 probably, and in a way that like Jimmy Butler hasn't in recent history.
I don't know that I would say that that Booker's been taken out of games in recent history either. Butler had some of games down the stretch, which when we go back and look at like we remember the intensity in the play. And Booker did end on a bad night against Denver, but like Booker had one of the hottest stretches in playoff history, like from game 2 against the Clippers to game 4 against Denver, 38.1 points per game, 8 assists on 62% from the field, 62, 54, 89 splits. Like I think Booker is just insane as a scorer, but I don't know about him as a consistent ball handler. I don't know about him over the course of the year. I had him as my number 10, right behind Shea, who was my 9. I'd be talking flip-flopping those around, but I do think I would much rather have Booker than Butler for this next year.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. And LeBron and Kawhi, you'd rather have Booker, Shea, and Butler over those guys?
No, right now I've got this 5-person tier as Shea, Booker, LeBron, Kawhi, Butler in that order. I might be tempted to flip around Kawhi and LeBron.
All right. The one thing that kind of scares me with Shea, which I'll just pull up to make sure I'm remembering right.
So the insane 3-point shoot or the insane 2-point shooting and absolutely no 3-point shooting.
Actually, no. No, actually it holds up. That's fine.
Really?
There's this big the thing I was checking. There's this big I don't know if it was big because it might just be narrowly tailored to like my niche viewing habits, but I saw this debate that was going around on TikTok about how can you like define or like verify empty calories or like empty stats. And I mean, I think that I've got like the perfect way to do that, which like holds up through pretty much all the guys that we consider empty stat guys who then, and even when, you can see the season where it feels like they graduated from that in the way that Devin Booker has, who was an empty stats guy and then became a real impact player. And that's just if a guy scores a lot and the offense still stinks, then I feel like that's empty stats. And it's so easy to look at. What is the offensive rating when they're on? Is there a big difference when they're on compared to when they're off? Look at Zach LaVine. Mediocre offense when he's on. When he's off, no real difference. Puts up box score numbers. Doesn't make an impact. Empty stats. And so I just wanted to check on Shea for that because in the previous season, he did put up good box score numbers and the offense was like god awful. It was 108 offensive rating when he was on, which is like embarrassingly bad. But in this past season, he's up at 117.6 and about 7 points better when he's on. So I think that to me is, one clear sign of impactful scoring and offensive play. And so I'm happy with him. I did have him right in that range as well.
Okay. So how do you want to split these 5 guys? Where do you want to rank them? Or do you have anyone else in this kind of cluster?
No, I think those are the guys. So did you want to do Booker at 8? Or was it 9?
So we had Davis at 8. I was thinking Shea at 9, Booker at 10. But I can flip flop them.
Yeah, let's do Booker first because Shea's been to the playoffs one time and it was as like the 4th option on a 8 seed Clippers team. So let's make him prove it before we go there.
Okay.
As much as I just said that Devin Booker's been, like had 2 straight years of just like completely collapsing in the playoffs. He's also had good moments.
Do you remember where we put Shea last year?
No, was it like the 30s?
It was 33. And I felt like when we did that last year, we were like, yeah, we expect a good year from Shea. Like we expect this, kind of leap, but I think he blew us out of the water. I mean, he did blow us out of the water, but I was kind of expecting along the lines of what you were saying, inefficient offense, and that doesn't really impact winning. And we
Yeah.
really
And
saw
and
him.
also like lazy defense, which wasn't the case
Yes.
either.
Yes. His defense was fantastic. I remember when we were trying to do our all defensive teams, and he was like one of the top players on a lot of different defensive metrics for guards. And like
Yeah.
there was a
Even
case.
like box score metrics, like his just blocks and steals were like among the
Yeah.
leaders. And like making play, like as much as box score defensive numbers are like, you know, that's the easiest way to look like you're a fucking idiot by being like, well, this guy actually is the league in steals, so he's a good defender. Like it does show that he's like making defensive plays, which is an important part of defense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Book at 9, Shea at 10. This is the first top
Mm.
100 that we've done with LeBron outside of the top 10. Such a gasp.
Yeah. It's the end of an era. I don't think it would come. I thought he'd just retire as a top 10 player.
He'll be 39 this next year.
Okay. So maybe being the 12th best player in the world is not too bad.
No. And like, LeBron can really still play. But I think it's clear if you watch his games, like the numbers 29 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. The numbers still look great. If you watch him, he picks and chooses his spots a lot more now. There's nights where he just does not have it and kind of rolls over. And there's nights where he's like, we need this, and so I'm going to go really hard for it. But like the game in, game out is just not there for LeBron.
Yeah. And I mean, we've also seen times where he's tried to bring it and just not being able to anymore. Where like he's like, okay, we do need this. I'm gonna go all out, and just like hasn't been able to reach that highest level.
Yeah.
That he has been able to in previous seasons.
Yeah. And I think also part of that's roster construction. And that might be some of the limitations on LeBron, where he is no longer fast enough to guard perimeter players night in, night out. Like there's a lot of threes that he just does not have the speed for. So then he ends up guarding a lot of fours. And then sometimes when they go small, he has to be the 5-man. And we saw a couple years back when it was him and Carmelo Anthony out there, and LeBron's playing the 5, and these lineups just get destroyed. There's zero rim protection. There might be times where they can get enough threes to make it even out, but consistently, if you watch them play this, it's a bad look, and LeBron is just giving up points at the basket time and time again. So that's not a great case for him to be 11, which is where I have him.
I was just about to say, so can we get Kawhi over LeBron?
Make the case. I think we can get there.
I think Kawhi is still a clear number one option on a high level team. And like, he's going to miss games in the regular season. So is everyone else at this range. Like, there's no guys who are going to play 82 at this sort of range. Still a guy that can get a bucket whenever he wants, which isn't true about LeBron anymore. And I think still a guy who can go out against a really high level wing and get a stop. The offense, if we look at that offensive impact that I was just talking about, with Kawhi on, they're scoring about 120 points per 100 possessions, and they're 9.5 points better when he's on compared to when he's off. So like the offensive impact is still there. He can still get a bucket whenever he wants going into the mid-range, proven playoff player, can still get stops. Probably going to miss some games, but so is everyone else.
Yeah. And if you look at Kawhi's numbers over the course of last year, just the basic box score counting numbers, they are hurt by some of the earlier games because he's at like 24 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4 assists. But in the early games, he's playing very limited minutes. And I do think that ramped up over the course of the year to where he's playing a heavier workload. And then the numbers kind of came back.
Even playing back-to-backs.
Yeah. Who would have thought that? All right. So if we lock in Kawhi at 11, LeBron at 12, any arguments against Butler at 13?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's playoff player. Like the regular season is kind of ugly. Like the fact that they barely scraped into the playoffs and then like to go on this incredible run that he went on. But yeah, I feel like it's him.
Yeah, if the regular season was any uglier, they wouldn't be here, and I think that's a problem for me. Like I want you to be able to be good both in 16 and 82 if you're going to be this high on the board. And Butler's apathetic during the regular season at times. He knows he's saving himself for the playoffs, and it shows in some games. But also in those playoffs, there are stretches where he's not good, and there are some key games where he was not good, and the rest of the team kind of came through for him. I do like the fact that Butler is versatile, and when he's having an off night shooting, like a game that looks really bad in the box scores was Game 6 against Boston, where he's got 24 points on 5 for 21 shooting. That looks bad, but he's also 8 assists, 11 rebounds. Like he figures out other ways to contribute when he's struggling to score. So
Yeah, and like the box score numbers, um, from a regular season perspective, aren't really that impressive.
mhm.
But even in the regular season, like the impact metrics still really like him.
Yeah. I mean, what he
Like
was
for
like fifth in blocks plus minus over the course of the year, or
yeah,
fourth,
we've got yeah,
four.
dunks EPM up in front of me from dunks and threes, where he's the number 4 player.
Yeah, it's an insane statistical kind of amalgamation, and I don't know. It's just the fact that he can put up poor box score numbers, great advanced numbers. The team sucks, but he still looks good from a numbers perspective. It's interesting, but I think 13 is the right spot, um, and maybe a bit high. I remember I had a take during the middle of the season, which is probably my worst take of all time. So that's saying something, but it was that the Heat should trade Butler because his contract's going to be an albatross in a few years, and he's going to go downhill quickly. And I still don't entirely know that I don't believe it. Maybe he's not going to go downhill that fast, but he's 33. He doesn't have a much range to his game. He is predicated on being a top defensive player. Usually, top defensive players, when they lose some of their athleticism, fall off more.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of found ways to make it work, particularly offensively, without like you really like that deep of a bag. Like the shooting's not really that good. He's not really quick enough to beat guys off the dribble.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually not a good finisher at the rim if you look at the shooting numbers. And so like the way that he manages to score is just by like being stronger than everyone, just
Yeah,
like bullying dudes to the rim.
but when you're cooking and you're like, I don't have this ingredient. Like, hey, I'm trying to make a stir fry. You make stir fries lots of ways. You want to put some frozen veggies in there? I don't have frozen veggies. Well, okay. What else do I have? Can I put something like you can keep trying to figure it out? And Butler's done a good job, but I think eventually there will come a point for him and his limitations where he stops being able to figure it out and stops being able to put more things in. I think
Yeah,
that point
and
sooner rather than later for a guy with his skill set.
yeah, it's like to carry on your stir fry analogy. It's like he's like thrown a bunch of garlic in there. Like there's not really any flavor, but because he gets so many free throws and he's able to
Hmm.
get to the line, that garlic really like provides a great flavor to the overall meal, which actually doesn't have a lot of flavor. And so if that lessens, if the refs stop giving him that sort of respect, if he can't get that advantage to get to the line anymore, all of a sudden the scoring becomes like kind of inefficient. And then the offense drops down, and then like it's yeah.
Why gotta use garlic? I love this analogy. I'll just man, it says like, hey, you need like 4 cloves of garlic. I'm like, cut a whole head. We're just gonna smash that, toss that whole thing in my curry. Be like, I do way too much garlic and stuff. So that might make me bump Butler her up. Can we get him over LeBron?
But I'm saying if he's losing that one advantage
Yeah,
that he has, if that diminishes whatsoever, then all of a sudden the other deficiencies start to become more evident.
it does. All right, so if we lock in Butler at 13, this is where I
Mhm.
feel like it's really interesting because this is now like, hey, what older star do we expect to kind of either maintain a abnormally high level what younger star do we expect to kind of take the next step? Or who do we kind of expect that wasn't healthy to be healthy this year? Do you have any nominations for 14?
Um,
And you don't have to limit yourself to one. If you got like 3 guys on your board, because I did like a loose rankings for these guys.
yeah. I'll give you my tier.
Okay.
Ja, Damian Lillard,
Mm-hmm.
and Donovan Mitchell.
Okay. Okay. I've got some separation between these guys. I've
Okay.
got Lillard at the 14. I had Ja at 18, in part just because of he's going to be missing 25 games.
Yeah,
And
and that's at least 25 games. There's no guarantee that he doesn't go be a fucking dickhead again and then miss more time.
yeah.
Like
And
that's why we don't have Kyrie, who from a talent perspective is probably right up there with these guys that we're discussing. But like we're not going to discuss him for another 10 spots because he's a fucking dickhead and like you cannot rely on him whatsoever.
Yeah, and yeah, then I had Donovan Mitchell down at 21, just from we know he can score. I know he can facilitate. I have seen this man facilitate enough that I do not question his playmaking abilities. But what I will say is that they do not happen often enough. You know, the 71-point game was amazing. Loved that game. There were opportunities to pass a number of times, and they're not being made consistently enough. And when I really look at Donovan Mitchell, I think he's one of the best scorers that we have left on the boards. But I think that's kind of all you're getting. He will always be a liability on defense. Yeah, he tries more, but
Yeah, I was going to say I think he improved defensively last season.
I think he wanted to prove that the problem was Gobert and not him.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to start getting over screens, and Rudy's just there like, why couldn't you do that like a year ago, you son of a bitch?
But it still wasn't even good. It was better. He was improved defensively, but still
like
not good.
The eye test and like even I think like it's like defensive rating stuff says that it like still wasn't good. But there's like some interesting tracking data that I've seen that actually says that he like was doing a pretty good job. And so I think that there's something there.
All right. So I'm going to throw a lot of names at you here because this is my guys in between Lillard and Mitchell.
Do we want to just want to lock in Lillard as our one guy that we agree on?
Absolutely.
Put him there.
We lock in Lillard at 14, and I think that's fair enough to do because I think Lillard is going to have another really good year this year. I think
like he was still one of the best offensive players in the NBA.
Yeah.
He is getting old, and that's scary, especially for a guy that relies on burst and also jump shooting. Like if that falls off a little bit, that's a big problem. And he's still a small guard, so he's going to struggle in certain matchups and in the playoffs and blah blah blah. But still, like leads consistently one of the best offenses in the NBA.
Yeah. One of the things that he did last year that I think was really important and kind of flew under the radar was he attacked the rim a lot more. He was getting almost 10 free throws a night by attacking, by going in and engaging in contact. And as like basically a career 90% free throw shooter, upping from 6 free throws a game to 9 is an easy couple of points to get. Yep. And putting the other team in foul trouble gets you a weaker defender against you. There's all sorts of advantages to free throws that aren't just in the 2 or 3 extra points that you see in the box score. So I think whether he is in Miami or Brooklyn or Portland next year, wherever he ends up, I think it's going to be a good spot for Lillard.
I pulled up the rim numbers, and in terms of field goal attempts per, like as a proportion of his overall shots, it worked out about the same. And so, like the difference was drawing a lot more fouls, which obviously don't show up as field goal attempts. But he also just finished at a lot higher rate. So in the previous season, he was at 54% at the rim, which is pretty bad. Like as far as rim scoring, 54% sounds good. At the rim, that's a very low number. That's 22nd percentile among point guards. So not even among all players where he gets, going to get skewed by bigs, but it was just straight up bad. Last year was 63%, which is above average. So it took a big jump in efficiency and also free throws, which bolster your efficiency even more.
And just for clarity's sake, for the audience, where are you getting those numbers? Because those numbers look different on different sites. Like if we're looking at
They do,
Basketball
yeah, you're right.
Reference. Yeah.
This
You're
is
cleaning
using
glass guy, right?
Yeah, this is using cleaning the glass. So this is excluding garbage time, and potentially even their definition of they categorize it as just rim, whereas
Mm.
Basketball Reference is using like feet tracking, so like shot from within 5 feet or whatever, where you can maybe get like I don't know, some differences there, but yeah,
A fadeaway layup or something
Yeah.
moving away from the basket might. I don't know if you do an up and under, but like a ways under. I don't know where they go for it, but
yeah.
yeah,
I like
I
the
was looking
cleaning
at
the glass numbers because they give you the context of having the percentiles.
yes.
And so we can see like previous year, 22nd percentile, god awful. This past year, 63rd percentile, pretty good, above average.
Yeah. All right. So if we lock in him at 14, I'm gonna give you the guys I got in between him and Mitchell. Let's see the thoughts. Interested to kind of hear what you got. We've got Paul George, Brandon Ingram, De'Aaron Fox, Ja, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Edwards. And Anthony Edwards' call out is I believe this guy is ready for a leap. This guy is going to progress, less so than anything I see in the numbers, but just I really like what I've been hearing out of Minnesota. Really like what I've been hearing out of the USA camp. Like I think this guy is going to be a two-way impact player whose scoring could be 90% of Mitchell's from an efficiency standpoint, but his defense will be better.
Yeah, no, I had Anthony Edwards and a lot of those guys right there as well. I feel like of those guys, Donovan Mitchell is the only one that has proven to be able to be the centerpiece of an elite offense. Those other guys have been part of good offenses as a second option, or have been the first option on decent offenses. Donovan Mitchell, I know, has proven multiple times that he can be the number one scorer and ball handler on an elite offense. Has had awesome playoff moments as well. And I feel like maybe has been one of the more unlucky players in terms of the matchups that he's had to go up against. Because he got bounced, I think, what was it, 2 straight times by the Clippers, who were just like the worst possible matchup because they could play 5 out and switch, which was the one way to completely nullify Rudy Gobert. And then went up against, who was it? Got destroyed by the Knicks this past season, right? Where the Cavs, their big difference maker outside of Mitchell was playing 2 bigs, and the Knicks just played 2 bigs better than they did. And so I feel like Mitchell has had some unlucky matchups from a playoff perspective throughout his career, but has had some really awesome moments. Has gone like toe to toe with Kawhi Leonard and bucket to bucket with that kind of guy, and has been like those Utah teams weren't stacked with offensive talent. Like they were well constructed, but they were consistently like top 1, top 2, top 3 kind of offenses, and he was the reason why. And so I feel like of those guys, even Paul George is one of my favorite players, a Clippers star. Donovan Mitchell has
rather
proven
have Mitchell. Interesting.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that from you because I do look at a lot of the kind of playoff collapses, and like, yes, I think going against the Knicks would be called a collapse. I think what he did against Dallas the prior year is a collapse, and I look at the limitations of Mitchell's game. I don't hate the idea of Mitchell over George. I think this is a really tight cluster. I also do just want to say, if we're just picking the most talented and best player here, I think it's Ja. But if we're taking into consideration the fact that he will be gone 25 games minimum, that hurts him in my book. We had Ja at 11 last year. I don't quite know how far I'm willing to let him slide this year, but if you can't be there for your team and you openly admit that you are a distraction and disruption for your team, you got to kind of bump it back.
Yeah. I mean, there are on-court arguments for Ja to be lower as well.
Sure.
So
Limitations.
I don't think it's unfair that we're holding him not being able to behave against him.
Can I make a case for De'Aaron Fox?
I had him quite a bit lower.
I know you did. I know you did. But De'Aaron Fox is the best player on an offensive team. He is the scoring leader. Yes, Sabonis' screen setting and passing is huge. I have them both in our top 30 this year after neither of them made it last year. But I also saw that Fox took a leap. Fox was one of the most clutch players in this past year. And Fox in the playoffs, going against Golden State and going against that just amazing defense, he breaks his hand in game 6, so I'm kind of throwing out the game 7 stats. But games 1 through 6, 29 points per game, 8 assists, 44.5% from the floor, 34 from 3. It's not insane shooting splits, but it's against a top tier playoff hardened team. And both him and Mitchell are young. Both him and Mitchell are improving. And I think season to season, like, I care less about what Mitchell did 3 seasons ago versus what Fox did 3 seasons ago, and more about what they did last year, because as they improve, it's they've gotten better.
Wait, so do you want to argue Fox over Mitchell as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. No, these were I read you all the names I had between Lillard and Mitchell.
Okay. That is, oh man. I was ready
the
to
number one offense.
I was ready to blow your mind and Aaron's mind if he decided to listen to this on his from a tent in whatever valley he's in. Sabonis is the guy for Sacramento. You're saying that Fox was the leader of the number one offense. I'm saying Domantas Sabonis was that guy. I wouldn't say that I've come around, and more that he elevated his play. I will just the biggest thing for me is Kings offense, awesome. Kings offense, Sabonis on, Fox off, still awesome. Kings offense, Sabonis off, Fox on, mediocre. The drop is when Sabonis goes to the bench, not when Fox goes to the bench. And Fox is being replaced by Davion Mitchell, who I think is a negative offensive player. And
Sabonis is being replaced by Alex Len.
The most used backup for him was Trey Lyles, who's an offensive player. And so they took Sabonis off, put in Trey Lyles, who's an offensive big man, if you can even call him a big man. And the offense was 115, so like fairly good, pretty nice. Okay. Let me get it just for accuracy. When Sabonis stays in and De'Aaron Fox goes to the bench, and again, this is using cleaning the glass because they make it nice and lovely. I take back everything I said. It turns out it's actually the same.
Boom.
and
but
there,
you know what you're
and
talking
there
about,
is an argument. Okay, maybe the argument that I was making all this time as I was arguing Sabonis over Fox is actually not that Fox should be lower and Sabonis should be higher, but that these are two complementary players that really rely on each other.
The
Whereas
shifting
Donovan
sands
Mitchell
are just sliding around. They're just
well, Nate, as new information has become available to me, I have
new
decided
information
that
that's a
in
season
fact,
old.
Yeah, new information that I misremembered and then rechecked and then discovered was not what I remembered. As the new information became available, it's clear to me that these are two high-level number 2 options whose complementary play creates a high-level offense. Donovan Mitchell on his own as a number 1 option is a high level number one who creates a high level offense. And like even the box score numbers are a lot better, right? Like the scoring volume and efficiency, they must be better for Mitchell. Proven like has had some bad moments, but has also had some excellent moments in the playoffs. Probably similar level of defense from Fox and Mitchell.
Yeah, they're really not that much better. I mean, we're talking 28 points versus 25. We're talking 57% in effective field goal versus 55. We're also talking fewer assists, less ball handling duties, is less playmaking, actually more turnovers despite fewer assists. So the assist to turnover ratio is better for Fox. We're talking the best player on the number one offensively rated team versus the best player on the number 9 offensive rating team.
Who was playing 2 non-shooting bigs and whose small forward was like Isaac Okoro.
Oh, sure. Just give him a pass for the small forward. De'Aaron Fox got Sacramento to the playoffs. I don't know what more I could say.
He had a very well constructed offensive team.
He did.
And Donovan Mitchell had Darius Garland, who's a good player, and then like offensive negatives, and got them to a top 10 offense. And has had seasons before where he's got teams to number one offenses, teams that had less offensive talent than this Kings team. Man, I really didn't think that Donovan Mitchell versus De'Aaron Fox was going to be an argument.
Well, I wanted to check.
I was ready to blow your mind with my Sabonis love.
How high do you have Sabonis?
Hey, in the top 30.
Okay. All right. So let's
not in the 60s this year.
I'm willing to for sake of this to move on. Let's put Mitchell in at 15. Would you accept Paul George at 16 and then Fox at 17?
Man, I said Fox so much lower. Like we're compromising by having. What did you have, Mitchell?
21.
Yeah, so like we're compromising by having your 21 and my 16 at whatever this is, whereas you want like your 17 and my 36. It's like compromising to.
There is no
17?
way Fox is 30. Fox was the most clutch player last year by the metrics. It's like, and the fourth quarter, kind of lean back on the old Phil Jackson way of coaching. You coach with the team concept through the first 3 quarters, and fourth quarter you turn it over to your star. And that's kind of what Sacramento did, is that it then became De'Aaron Fox time.
I'll say if we're ranking the seasons that were and we weren't projecting, that would have a lot more sway, because like that is a thing that did happen, but the history of clutch numbers are that they don't really translate. Like the previous season, DeMar DeRozan was a god in the fourth, and this past season he was like below average.
Okay. We'll held off on De'Aaron Fox.
Okay, we'll put him on the back burner. We'll see who else we can come up with.
We snuck in Paul George without discussing him too much.
Yeah,
that's fine. Paul George, like
he's an elite 2-way player. Come on.
Yeah. I'm just saying for the listeners, like, come on, we don't need to discuss him. If he's healthy, he's great. Moving on. Who do you want at 17? Is this your Ja Morant time? I think I'm ready for Ja Morant if you're not going to give me Fox.
Yeah, let's do Ja.
Okay. Ja, fantastic player.
Right.
Wonderful downstream, attacking the basket, kind of a dickhead. Yep. Good.
I've got a similar player, not at all in terms of play style, but in terms of overall player profile to Ja, which is awesome offensive player, potential number one, like legitimately could be a number one guy on a championship team, and totally unreliable. Like Zion Williamson, we had as a top 15 player, I think, and an All NBA kind of guy, incredibly unreliable. But where were you thinking for him? Because this is right about where I had him. Like if we're expecting any sort of like normal amount of play from him, like this is where he's probably going to slot in,
I'm just not expecting it.
if not higher.
So last year we ranked him at 15th. He was coming off of a 61 game season, he was coming off of not playing, and he was going. We expect him to play. So, in his past 4 years, it was 24 games, 61 games, full year off, and it was like, cool, he's finally gonna be healthy this year. That's another 29 game, and I think that another injury just bumps him back for me. When he was out there, it was fantastic. We're looking at 26 points, 7 in boards, 4.5 assists on just insane shooting splits. Like we're talking true shooting of 65%. The man, and that's actually probably dragged down by poor free throw shooting because he's 60% from the floor. Like Zion, when healthy, is an absolute bear, but until he shows me he can be healthy for 40 games, like we're bumping Kyrie back because we don't trust him. Do you trust Zion more than you trust Kyrie? Because at this point, I trust a man that showed Holocaust denial videos, fought against a vaccine. I
demanded trades from like 3 championship level teams.
Yeah. I trust him more than I trust Zion. Like that's where I'm at.
All right, we'll hold off on Zion for now, because I do agree. Like if we're saying he's going to be healthy, he's probably a little bit higher than this. Mm-hmm. Do we expect him to play 50 games? Probably not. And so we got to bring him down a bit.
Yeah.
I'll give you my next couple of guys. Quite hard ones to rank, I think.
Okay.
James Harden and Drew Holiday.
Way lower.
Interesting.
My guy, you're fighting me on De'Aaron Fox and you want to sneak in James Harden? No. God, no. Okay.
All right.
My next couple of guys, if you're not giving me Fox.
And no love for Drew as the best two-way guard in the NBA?
No, Drew just offensive. Like the thing with two-way is we always say two-way. We're like, yeah, he's great on both ends. No, two-way means that you're a competent offensive player and a good defensive player. Like
I think he's better than a competent offensive player, though.
I don't. I mean, I
think he's like good enough to be like your second, like ball handler.
I think if he's your second best player, your team is a fringe contender. The thing that makes Milwaukee good is that they've got both him and Middleton and Giannis. But
can I just give you the box score numbers from the season that he played basically without Middleton?
Yeah.
Or do you have them there?
That's 19 or basically 19 points,
19 points, 5 rebounds, 7.5 assists. The best defensive guard in the league. Basically 59 true shooting. It's like he's putting up volume, he's putting up efficiency, and he's having a two-way impact. Like it's tricky because there are better offensive players, which is kind of what you want out of a point guard. And so it's like, where does that, being a really good number 2 or really good number 3 start to be more valuable than a kind of okay number 1 or like kind of okay number 2 sort of thing. And so like I'm not saying that this is necessarily where he should be. This is where I had him, but like it's a hard one to rank. I think he should be in this sort of conversation with these guys.
I'd much rather get a driving force. Because I don't think Middleton I don't think Drew has gotten better in the last several years. And so I just want you to think back to like him in New Orleans. Would we consider ranking him this high? No. We're considering ranking him this high because he's next to Giannis. And now he's a lot more complimentary in that skill set. But if you also put De'Aaron Fox next to Giannis, actually, I don't think that skill set would mesh the best. But if you put De'Aaron Fox next to like Jokic, another elite player like that, holy cow! So like I've got Drew Holiday quite a ways down. I mean, I'll talk to you about Jamal Murray before I talk to you about Drew Holiday.
Okay.
Could I interest you in a couple of guys that are more low grade ones. Anthony Edwards with the potential of the jump up.
Yeah, let's
Brandon
let's do
Ingram.
Edwards. I like Edwards.
Yeah, perfect. All right, Edwards at 18. Next couple of guys on my board are Bam Adebayo, Tyrese Halliburton, and Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
Yeah, you love this cluster, don't you?
I think James Harden's better than both those point guards that you just chose.
He's not.
Okay, never mind.
Listen, Harden, what you've got zero defensive impact. You've got apathetic offense. I mean, the man at this point is scoring primarily just by jacking up threes. He is still getting you 10 assists this per game, but it's not like, I mean, there's a difference between assists and creation. And Houston Harden is creating. Houston Harden is jab stepping. Houston Harden is drawing the defense than kicking. Current Harden is doing more of like, I dribble the ball up and the offense sets and let me hit the open man. Like there's a lot less creation, a lot less consistent play from him. And there's still just an apathetic defense that like, no, I did not have Harden in my top 30.
Wow, not even top 30.
No.
I had him at 18.
Why? Why would you do this to yourself?
He's still an elite offensive creator.
Is
he? Who has proven that he can scale his role up and down.
Has he?
Man.
Like he had a couple of good playoff games when Embiid was down. Really, okay. He had game was a 1 and game 4 in Boston. But like game 2, pretty rough, 2 for 14. Game 3, 3 for 14. In game 7, 3 for 11. Like he had some pretty rough games, and that 3 for 11 is also with 5 turnovers. That it gave him what's this game 3? The 3 for 14 is also 5 turnovers. Like I'm just saying.
Okay, we're making terrible time here, so we need to like keep searching through until we can find a player that we agree on.
I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop this at 25, and then we're just gonna do 4 episodes, figure out the top 100. We go 25 each time.
All right. That sounds good.
All right.
Could I? I think he's
Bam
one of the most overrated players in the NBA.
What the? Where is your value system?
I've fallen out on Bam.
How have you fallen out on Bam?
He's like a mediocre offensive player and like a pretty good defender.
Oh man, that's almost like what Drew Holiday is. But he's actually a center, which has a lot more defensive impact and value and greater
health. Drew's way better on offense.
Oh my god.
I think Bam is like a super dependent player. I'd rather have. I think Jaren Jackson's better than Bam. I think Jaren's better on both ends than Bam is.
What do you think about Jaren's season could we get next year? Because I was trying to figure out what I thought. I had him a little ways lower, but just no Ja. So he's going to be the focal point of that team. And he had a good stretch where Ja was out this past year. And I've seen a number of Memphis people be like, yo, low key, Jaren is better than Ja. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I like what he can do. I like what he brings.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the best defensive player. I've said that about like 3 guys now. He's one of the best defensive players in the NBA. And he's like an efficient 19 a game scorer. If he can scale that up, like even if like the efficiency drops off a little bit, like that's still a really awesome player. Like he's over 60% true shooting on 19 points. If that becomes 24 points and, 59 true shooting, then that's still an awesome player. Combine that with the fact that he's, so defensively versatile and impactful. And he's so young. Like this dude was born in 99.
I went and found the stretch of games, and it's from like March 15th to April 7th. He's at 25.5 points per game, 7.5 boards, 2.6 blocks. And it's 57% shooting from the floor, 41 from three. Like I remember this stretch because I kind of saw the box score numbers initially. I went and watched a few of the games, and he's being a lot more aggressive offensively. He's catching and driving, and there's a lot of let me attack from the 3-point line. I don't trust that small of a sample size enough yet to put him into the top 20. But I'm tempted top 25. Like you can get me into the top 25 pretty easily with Jaren.
What number are we ranking right now?
We locked in Edwards at 18. We're struggling to get to 19.
Okay.
De'Aaron Fox. Sabonis. Sabonis.
Could we get any Siakam love? Are you out on Siakam because the Raptors are so miserable to watch?
So I had mixed feelings about Siakam because all of Siakam's numbers are fine. Siakam's numbers are good. Great field goal percentage. Great. Rebounding.
He's like a low level number one.
Yeah. I could be talked into it. It's not something that I'm excited about. I would really love to see him be a number two.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of depressing because he's on the Raptors, and the Raptors went from one of the most exciting teams to one of the most depressing, and he's also refusing to be traded away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's gonna be, it's not exciting, but he's a really good player. He could be a really elite number two option.
Yeah, and just thinking about what Jaren could be is, hey, high end he's better, low end he's worse. I'm a little bit higher on Jaren, but I think Pascal's the safer pick if we want to lock him in at 19.
Yeah, I'm not a massive Siakam fan, but I feel like this is about where he should be.
Yeah, I had him, Zion, and really I had the bigs, Zion, Pascal, Sabonis, and Jaren in a cluster. With Julius Randle just a hair behind.
Yeah,
and I was just I'm not excited about Pascal, but he's the safest choice.
Yeah.
Sure.
Brandon Ingram.
I had Ingram up at 16 on my board.
Yeah.
I said the name and you didn't give me any love there.
I was coming back to him. There were a few guys I wanted to get out of the way first.
Like James Harden and Drew Holiday.
Yeah. Big thing for Ingram is that he went from scorer to offensive engine. The scoring numbers are up, the passing is drastically improved. Efficient scorer, the offense is good when he's on. Would be really nice if he had a number one option next to him.
Yeah. Actually, at this point, no, Zion is still better. I was about to say it's something silly, but Ingram,
it's at least a thought that flicks through your head for a second.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if Zion could be healthy for 40 games, this team is making the playoffs. Ingram was only healthy for 45 games. That was fantastic during them. And I know the numbers don't look that much of an improvement. This is 5.8 assists versus 5.5 the prior year. Ingram ball handling and creating in this year was a lot better.
Yeah.
Yes, turnovers went up, assists didn't go up as much. Watching the game, they also had crisp ball movement where he'd kick and then secondary assists. I don't have the full offensive numbers. I'm sure you might be able to snag them off clean glass easier than I can, but the vibes watching them were just the Pelicans clicked when he was out there, and they had a really nice 2-man game. And with CJ kind of setting up post up for Valanciunas, they're just an interesting team. It's kind of funny to watch them. But I think if I have to bank on someone from this next group being healthy and taking the next step, a 26-year-old Brandon Ingram feels like a nice bet.
Yeah, and I just want to put out a PSA just on that. There was a tweet that went around saying Brandon Ingram is pushing 30 and not making any noise on the US team. As a man who was born a month before Brandon Ingram, I'd just like to put out that he is definitely not pushing 30. This man is in his mid-20s. He is not pushing 30. Let's dispel that rumor.
He'll be 26.
He's
like
turning
10 days.
26. He's in his mid-20s. He's not pushing 30. Let's cut that out.
Damn. What are they going to say? I'm pushing 40? 31. God. All right, so we lock in Ingram at 20. We still need to get 5 more names on the board.
Do we want to do... Let's do... Sabonis, Triple J, and then Halliburton. You good with that?
Interesting. I had Halliburton over those two guys. Just I really like what his involvement is with the offense. That's as far as he is the primary playmaker. I know Sabonis kind of is the hub.
I just want to see it on a good team though. Like it's not even sniffing the playoffs. The team's mediocre. Yeah, like I need it to be proved that that's something that carries over to a good team.
Can we go Sabonis, Halliburton, Triple J?
Yeah, sure.
With Triple J, we had Triple J. Actually, we had both Triple J and Halliburton down pretty low last year. We had Triple J at 53, and we had Halliburton down at 59 going into last season. So that just shows how much they've jumped up. But I do think Jaren's improvement was a little bit backloaded, and the continuity is not there as much. Like the Pacers brought in more players that are going to help Halliburton play that tempo with Obi Toppin. I think there's a good chance he looks better and has a better season this year. Jaren's asked now to go from being the number 2 to the number 1 with Ja out. And I think that he might struggle a little bit. So I'm a little bit more hesitant on him. Now can we get De'Aaron Fox in? You're not going to like the other names here. It's De'Aaron Fox, it's Bam Adebayo, it's Jalen Brunson, it's Trae Young, or it's Zion Williamson. And
or it's Kyrie.
Yeah.
Or it's Yeah.
Yeah. It's Foxy time.
Okay, let's do it.
Aaron's going to be so happy with us.
I know, we got both of them in the top 30. I didn't have Sabonis top 60
25.
Last year.
I know. I remember the first year doing this with you, and you're like, "Yeah, I think I've got him at like 99." I'm like, "What the?"
And I was right. God damn it!
Okay, I did double check. It's 79 that you had him at.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Gulliver commented on. He's like, Sabonis too low. It's like, yeah, and that was after being averaged out by like you guys pulling him up. And he's like, oh, Sabonis way too low. I'm like, yeah, that was me. I had him in the 80s.
Yeah, you did not like a big man that can't play defense. Which is why I'm like kind of surprised that you've been fighting me on Bam for so much.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah.
I think it's going to be either Bam or
it's a new world. Nikola Jokic has changed everything. You can be an elite offensive center who can't defend the rim at all and still get by.
All right. So do you want
we'll do
Bam or Brunson? Because I feel like Bam actually had a really good playoff run that kind of got overshadowed by all of the Butler love.
Yeah, I guess he did, yeah. He was the third best player on a team that made the finals.
Yeah. And that might be, I mean, we fall in love with a lot of the other Heat players, the Gabe Vincents, the Max Struces,
the
Caleb Martins.
Yeah, if we can get Caleb Martin in here, then we'll put Bam just behind him, and then everything's fine.
No.
All right.
Bam at 25?
I don't know.
You want to give me a Trae Young case?
No.
You would Bam. Dylan, what am I doing here?
I'm out on Bam, okay?
Yes, but so I'm in a fantasy football league, and And so I'm listening to the Ringers podcast to try to prepare for it. And they had a podcast of the guys they hate to rank. And they're like, listen, these are the guys that our professional credibility would be off if we didn't rank them in such and such ranges. Like, you have to have him here. But there's no fucking way we're drafting this guy. I'm not asking you to build your team around Bam. I'm asking you to rank him in a reasonable range, Dylan.
All right. Yeah, there's no one that I feel that strongly about.
So we got him. We got him. We got 1 through 25.
Oh, is that 25?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good shit.
The throw of like, hey, let's just do Sabonis, Halliburton, Triple J as the next three. That really that bumped us up quickly.
That sped us up.
All right, I'm gonna read them back to you.
Feel like we could close out 30. We've got some guys that we discussed that we just wanted to hold off on a little bit. I feel like we could close it out. Harden, Holiday, Kyrie. Who else did you have?
So my guys that I have left on my board before
Brunson,
30
do we get him?
are Brunson, Trae Young, Zion, Cade Cunningham, and Julius Randle.
I like the Cade pool actually.
It might be living in Michigan.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? Maybe we can't do this. Let's close it out. 25 it is.
25 it is. Dylan, where can people find you?
In my beautiful living room. I'll just be over there at my Steinway.
Your fantastic piano.
Thank you.
One of only 100. That's a Steinway thing? Exclusivity?
Absolutely.
All right. You can find us both here at the Hoops Temple podcast every week, usually dropping episodes on Monday, sometimes dropping episodes on Thursday.